Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about perceived value.
Yeah.
And for this one, you sent me this interview with Rory Sutherland,
Yeah.
the author of Alchemy. He's kind of an ad guru.
Yeah. He's a big name in the advertising world for sure. Really interesting thinker and
Yeah.
just a really good speaker.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah, and he can make kind of complex ideas very approachable.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited to jump in. So kind of the big takeaway, and we're going to go through several different points here,
Yeah.
is that perceived value
Mm-hmm.
is in a lot of ways more important than just kind of the function of the product itself.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how he flips the script on traditional economics.
Right.
Typically we think about value as something that's like inherent in a product or service.
Yeah.
But Sutherland argues that psychology plays a massive role.
Right.
And in many cases, it's more important than the actual function.
Totally. And so he says that, we're not just buying a product, we're buying the story behind it, like the meaning it holds.
Absolutely.
And so like a great example is like a luxury car.
Yeah.
Right? It's more than just transportation.
Right. It's a status symbol.
Yeah.
It's a statement about your success, your taste,
Yeah.
maybe even a little bit of rebellion.
Yeah.
We value it for what it represents, not just for getting us from point A to point B.
And he makes this point, too, that's really interesting about how creating value this way, through this kind of psychological lens, is actually more environmentally friendly
Right.
than just making things like bigger or faster.
Yeah.
He has this great quote, don't make the Eurostar faster, make the journey more enjoyable.
I love that quote. It really perfectly encapsulates his philosophy.
Yeah.
Because instead of using more resources, to shave off a few minutes on a train ride,
Yeah.
you can focus on improving the experience.
Yeah.
Add Wi-Fi, better food, more comfortable seats.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've created more value in a much more sustainable way.
It's amazing. And it makes me think about, like, even something as simple as, like, tracking packages online.
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily need the package, like, right this second, but knowing where it is
Sure.
eases my anxiety.
Yeah. But that's a great example.
It's funny.
Sutherland would probably call that like a psychological moonshot.
Okay.
He uses the Uber map as like the ultimate example of this.
Right.
The map doesn't actually reduce the wait time,
Right.
but it eliminates that uncertainty, that stress of not knowing.
Yeah.
It addresses our emotional needs, not just the practical one.
It's that feeling of relief when you see that little car icon, like, moving on the screen.
Exactly. It's amazing how such a small thing
Right.
can make such a big difference in our perception of the experience.
Right. And speaking of these kind of like almost like magical things, like, he also dives into this idea of the IKEA effect.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever noticed, like, how you value something more if you put effort into it? Even if it's just assembling some furniture.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm terrible at putting furniture together.
Sure.
But that feeling of accomplishment when I finally finish, it's like, I made this.
Right. You feel a sense of ownership over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the IKEA effect in action. And Sutherland's point is that sometimes making things slightly harder can actually make them more desirable
Interesting.
because we're wired to appreciate things that we've earned or that we've put effort into.
So intentionally adding friction.
In a way, yeah.
That's really interesting. And speaking of making things appealing, he also talks about how powerful storytelling is in creating value.
Oh, absolutely.
I love this example he gives about the Tesla vegan leather.
Yeah.
It's still plastic, right?
Right.
But framing it as a conscious choice aligns it with the brand's sustainability story.
Exactly. It's not just about the product itself.
Yeah.
It's about the story you wrap around it.
Totally.
He even suggested that KFC should play up the fact that Colonel Sanders started the company at age 65.
Oh, wow.
Like, what a story of resilience and late blooming success.
Yeah.
It completely changes the brand's image.
That's amazing.
Suddenly, it's not just fast food.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the power of perseverance.
You get a bucket of chicken and you're like, wow, I'm part of the American dream.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And he even points out that something as simple as naming a product after a person can create this sense of history and heritage.
Oh, interesting.
Like, imagine a pasta sauce called La Bella's.
Right.
It immediately evokes a family recipe passed down through generations.
Right, like it's been around for a long time.
Even if it's mass-produced.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Our brains are just wired to crave those personal connections.
Yeah, but what about personalization in marketing? I mean, it's kind of everywhere these days.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I mean, Sutherland believes it can be really effective, but you have to walk a fine line. He gives this great contrast. He talks about receiving a personalized email from the CEO of his gym, which felt really creepy.
Okay, yeah.
But then he compares it to a hotel leaving a chocolate with his company's logo on it.
Yeah.
Which felt really special and thoughtful.
Right, so it's all about the context.
Exactly. It's all about the context and the intent.
Well, that actually makes me wonder, like, where do you draw the line with personalized marketing?
It's a good question.
What feels genuine and what feels invasive?
It's something we all need to think about, especially as technology allows for even more targeted personalization.
Totally. And this actually leads into something that Sutherland's really passionate about, which is customer service,
Yes.
especially in the world of e-commerce.
Yeah, he has some strong opinions about this.
He does? He really does.
He hates it when companies hide their phone numbers and don't give you a choice of delivery services.
Yeah.
He believes that the post-purchase experience is absolutely crucial for building loyalty.
Yeah.
And for him, it boils down to empowerment. Yeah. Giving the customer control and showing them that you genuinely care about their needs even after the sale is complete.
Like the relationship doesn't end at checkout.
Exactly.
It actually starts there.
In a way, yeah. That's where the real work of building trust begins.
So I think what we've learned so far is that, Sutherland reminds us that psychology plays this huge role in how we perceive value.
Absolutely.
It's not just about functionality. It's about the meaning we attach to things, the stories we tell, the experiences we create.
Yeah, it's about those subtle cues, those emotional connections that really shape our perception.
Right.
And he really encourages us to look for those alchemical moments where a shift in perspective can unlock these new and surprising ways to create value.
It's like magic.
It really is.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back in just a moment with part 2 of this deep dive where we'll explore even more of Sutherland's fascinating insights.
Sounds good. Welcome back to our deep dive into Rory Sutherland's world.
Yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
I mean, we've been talking about meaning and perception as these key drivers of value, often overshadowing like pure functionality.
Right, like it makes you think about like what happens when companies miss the mark on these psychological cues.
Yeah, Sutherland gives a really good example of this with La Perla.
Okay.
It was a lingerie brand that unfortunately went under.
Oh, wow.
And they had this incredible heritage. The founder used to hand stitch every piece.
Oh, wow.
With these golden scissors.
So it's like such a story.
I know, right?
A gold mine.
A gold mine of a story, and they never really tapped into it. Instead, they tried to compete on price with these cheaper brands, and people just couldn't understand, like, why pay a premium for La Perla?
They didn't get it.
They didn't get it. They had a great product.
Yeah.
But they failed to convey that deeper meaning.
Right. And so this is kind of what we were talking about before the break. Like, It's not just about creating something valuable. You have to be able to frame it in a way that resonates with people.
Yeah, you have to connect with their emotions and desires.
Yeah, it's that storytelling piece.
Exactly.
Like, remember his suggestion for KFC?
Oh, yeah.
Tell the story of Colonel Sanders starting the company at 65.
What a powerful narrative.
I know.
Like resilience, late-blooming success.
Suddenly.
It could totally transform the brand's image.
Yeah, suddenly it's not just fast food. It's like a testament to perseverance.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool.
It makes you wonder, like, how many other hidden stories are out there just waiting to be told.
Totally. And Sutherland actually takes this idea even further.
Okay.
He argues that, in a way, we're all brands.
Interesting.
We're constantly marketing ourselves to the world.
So you're saying, like, we're all sending signals, crafting narratives, trying to project a certain image?
Totally, just like a company would.
Yeah, like we're the marketing directors of our own lives.
The self-awareness is key.
Right. You have to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, how you come across to others.
Yeah.
It's about being deliberate about the story you want to tell.
Right.
The personal brand you want to build.
And, on that note, Sutherland is also a big advocate for diversity in thinking.
Absolutely, especially in creative fields.
Yeah.
He really believes in bringing together people with different backgrounds, different perspectives.
Like, that's where the magic happens.
That's where the innovation comes from. When you have people who see the world differently, they can challenge each other's assumptions.
Right, and come up with something totally new.
Exactly. And he even suggests that studying the classics can be surprisingly useful even in a modern business context.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
It might seem counterintuitive, but, studying the classics equips you with these critical thinking skills. The ability to analyze complex systems, the art of effective communication.
Yeah, so it's about expanding your mental toolkit,
Exactly.
approaching problems from multiple angles.
Right, just like those diverse teams that Sutherland advocates for.
But, he also has some pretty strong opinions about, like, the limitations of traditional economic thinking.
Yeah, he thinks economists often overemphasize rationality and efficiency.
That-
They kind of neglect the influence of emotions, context, storytelling.
And he gives this great example of a travel website
Oh, yeah.
that intentionally slowed down its search process
Okay.
to make the results seem more valuable.
Interesting.
Because if it works too quickly, we might not trust that it actually did a thorough search.
Right, like we need to see the effort
Yeah.
to believe in the value of the outcome.
Yeah, it's so counterintuitive.
It is, but it highlights how much of our decision-making operates on a level beyond pure logic.
Right.
And
right.
this kind of leads to this fundamental question, what is value, really? Is
Yeah.
it objective? Is it inherent in the product or service?
Right.
Or is it subjective, created in the mind of the consumer? Like Sutherland argues.
It's a really good question. And, like, if we can shift perceptions, tell the right story,
Yeah.
create the right context,
Right. Can we essentially manufacture value?
that's deep.
It's a thought-provoking question
Yeah.
with implications for everything from marketing and product design
Right.
to how we assess our own worth.
Totally. But, on a more practical note, Sutherland has some very straightforward advice,
Okay.
especially for those in e-commerce.
Yeah.
Answer the phone.
He's a big believer in customer service,
Yeah.
especially when things go wrong.
Yeah.
He thinks too many online businesses neglect the post-purchase journey. They
Mhm.
hide their phone numbers.
Yeah.
They make it difficult to get help.
Right.
He stresses giving customers choice in delivery services,
Yeah.
offering easy returns, always having a human available to assist.
It's all about building that trust,
Exactly.
showing that you actually care.
Yeah. And especially in today's world with endless options, customer loyalty is incredibly valuable.
It's true. And sometimes it's those small human touches,
Mm-hmm.
that willingness to go the extra mile,
Right.
that makes all the difference.
Yeah. It's about creating a connection that goes beyond a simple transaction.
Yeah, and Sutherland also emphasizes the power of packaging.
Oh, interesting.
He sees it as like the first point where a product truly becomes a brand,
Okay.
where it takes on its personality and values.
So he's encouraging businesses to really consider the unboxing experience.
Yeah.
Make it special. Reinforce the brand's story.
Yeah, because ultimately it's those emotional connections.
Right.
Those subtle cues, those carefully crafted stories
Exactly.
that shape how we perceive value and influence our choices.
It all comes back to psychology.
It really does. Well, we'll be right back with part 3 of this deep dive,
Okay.
where we'll uncover Rory Sutherland's answer to that intriguing question, if you could be anyone in the world, who would you be? Stay tuned. All right, we are back
Back for the grand finale.
for the final part of our deep dive into the mind of Rory Sutherland.
I know he's been called like the Don Draper of behavioral science.
He really is.
Such a fascinating guy. It's
Yeah.
been so fun to like go through his ideas and
Yeah, he has this amazing ability to like blend psychology and economics.
right, and even a bit of philosophy.
Yeah, to completely turn our ideas about value like upside down.
Yeah, and he has this contagious enthusiasm too for finding those like unconventional solutions.
Yeah,
Those alchemical moments.
like magic.
It really is where psychology unlocks something brilliant.
So this actually brings us back to that question we posed earlier.
Right.
If you could be anyone in the world, who would you be?
It's such a simple question.
Yeah, but it's so revealing
It is.
about a person's values,
Their aspirations.
who they really admire.
And Sutherland's answer was pretty unexpected.
It was.
He said he'd want to be a comedian,
Really?
specifically John Cleese.
Wow, from Monty Python.
Yeah.
That's a curveball. I would not have guessed that,
It might seem surprising at first.
especially given all this talk about marketing and value creation.
Right, but when you think about it, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Comedians have this amazing ability to see the world differently.
totally.
They find humor in the unexpected, they challenge our assumptions.
They make us laugh at ourselves.
Exactly, and that's kind of what Sutherland does with his work.
He does.
He's always finding those surprising connections that make us rethink everything.
It's like he's reframing reality.
He is, and he's a bit of a comedian himself.
Yeah.
Always ready with a witty remark or an anecdote.
And he's not afraid to like poke fun at the absurdities of human behavior.
Right, even his own.
I think that's what makes him so engaging.
Yeah, that blend of intellectual rigor and playfulness.
It's really cool. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what do you think is the key takeaway here?
I think the biggest thing to remember is never underestimate the power of perception.
Yeah,
The stories we tell,
the meaning we create.
it's not just about the what, it's
Yeah.
about the why.
The deeper meaning behind things.
Exactly. And that opens up a whole world of possibilities.
It does.
We can use these insights to improve our communication, our relationships, build more compelling brands.
Maybe even challenge the systems and structures that shape our world.
Absolutely. Sutherland's message is clear: embrace unconventional thinking.
Yeah.
Be curious, experiment, never stop asking questions.
That's great advice in a world that often feels very complex and overwhelming.
It is. And those moments of surprise, those flashes of insight, those genuine connections,
Well,
that's what makes life worth living.
totally.
And hey, maybe we'll even find a reason to laugh at ourselves along the way.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of value. We'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration
Sounds good.
of all the things that make us think a little differently. Until then, keep diving.